process. But the proposal I'm going to show you today, I would have been here endorsing and encouraging, even if there had been no bankruptcy, no emergency management. I believe the proposal that we're going to outline here is the right thing for the residents of the city of Detroit. And for those who don't remember last winter, as the temperatures start to cool here in September, here's why we need to change. 5,000 water main breaks in this city. You remember what it was like. Cars frozen in neighborhoods around the city. 5,000 water main breaks in just the last 3 years. If we don't do something, this is going to get worse and worse for years to come. And as we saw last year, the water main breaks weren't the worst of it. As everybody knows, right outside the building we're in right now, the sinkhole that erupted down on Jefferson, and you can see the ladder, how deep that it ran. It took several months to fix up, but it wasn't just downtown seeing these sinkholes. On Linwood, on Tyron, on Beaubien, we lost a car. Our EMS vehicles have been stuck in these sinkholes, and we narrowly averted the tragedy when this little girl going to the school bus stepped into what she thought was a small puddle of water and nearly drowned in the sinkhole before her mother pulled her out. This is what the residents of the city of Detroit are experiencing, and it's getting worse every year. We can't keep closing our eyes to the situation that we have. We have got to address it, and the city has allowed this to happen for way too long. And so, the reason I'm here today is because I don't believe we should have to live like this. And why haven't we done it? Because we haven't had money. We've got 3,400 miles of local water mains serving the neighborhoods of the city of Detroit. You would need to spend $25 million a year just to replace 1% a year. The basic standard, $25 million a year is the minimum to replace the aging pipes. So how have we been doing it? Well, in 2010, 2011, instead of spending $25 million, we spent $7 million. Turns out that was a good year. Next year we spent $3 million. Next year it went down to $2 million. We are letting these pipes crumble and we're not doing anything about it. And finally this year we got back up to $3 million. When you don't deal with the problem honestly, what are the results going to have? What's happened to water main breaks? Anybody thinks it was just 1 year? It is not. So 3 years ago, we had 1,200 water main breaks. And then 2 years ago, it went up to 1,600. And last year, it went up to 1,900. This next year, we're going to go well over 2,000 water main breaks across the city of Detroit. If you want to see what's truly frightening, it's the magnitude of it. Is this just a couple of water main breaks that are in bad shape we have to replace? These were the water main breaks across the city 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago. And then this is what we're looking at. This is what 5,000 water main breaks in Detroit looks like. The system is collapsing in almost every neighborhood in our community. And the leadership of this city has had no plan on how to deal with it. And my issue was that the proposals coming out of the emergency manager provided no plan in how to deal with it. So when we entered into the negotiations with Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County, I said there are going to be 7 principles that have to be met if I am going to recommend a deal to the city council in Detroit and to the people of Detroit. Number 1, Detroit would not sell any assets. Our assets are not going to be for sale. That was not a subject of conversation. Took that off the table from the beginning. Second, Detroit has to keep control of our local system. And we're going to talk today about the difference between the local system and the regional system. But for what is in the neighborhoods, the water and sewer lines, the 6,400 miles of water and sewer lines running through every neighborhood in the city, that's the local system. Detroit has got to have complete control of the water pipes running to our neighborhoods. They cannot go to any broader authority. There's no reason Wayne, Oakland, or Macomb County should have control over what's happening in our local system. Third, we would to a regional authority. By lease, I mean rent the assets to a regional authority, but Detroit had to have each of them. I want the regional authority. Then, you've all experienced what's happened in this community with folks who have been unable to pay when the city did not have appropriate funds to help those who couldn't pay. Any solution had to provide a permanent water affordability fund for people in our community who can't afford to pay their bills. We weren't going to make a deal without addressing that problem. Next, we would have to have enough money coming to our local system to rebuild all these water mains. These 2,000 water main breaks a year can't continue to happen. As far as the city employees, all of the union contracts and the pensions of the current employees would have to be protected, whether the employees stayed at DWSD or they went to a regional authority. And after we announced this, I've done several employee forums at several of the water facilities, including a midnight shift at the Jefferson plant of DWSD, and I think the employees have a pretty good understanding of what we've done. Certainly they're far more protected than they might have been otherwise. And then last, Kevin Orr had to drop the plan to privatize DWSD. Those were the 7 principles that I said had to be the basis of the deal. And I wouldn't be here today if we hadn't met those 7 principles. And I'll show you how we do it. The most important thing to understand is the difference between the local system and the regional system. We talk about it as if it's DWSD, if it's one system. But it's not. As council members know, it's 2 different systems. It's a local system that serves the neighborhood, and it's a regional system with pipes that run up to Lake Orion and include all kinds of plants. And so let's talk about the difference between the systems. The regional water system serves 128 communities in southeastern Michigan. The regional system has 400 miles of major pipes that call transmission pipes and 5 filtration plants. When the bills go out, all 128 communities, including the city of Detroit, pay a share of the regional system. Then there's the Detroit local system. The Detroit local system on the water side is 3,400 miles of water mains running in every neighborhood in the city, and the billing and collection staff, which are entirely City of Detroit staff. The local system is paid for 100% by Detroiters. When a water main breaks in a neighborhood in Detroit, Detroiters pay for that water main break, not the other 128 communities. When Detroiters can't pay their bills, other Detroiters have to make up for those bills. That's the local system. And so as we looked at this, we said, okay, the local system is what affects our lives every day. And if you can see on this map, and I know it's a little hard to see, but I think you get the idea. The red lines on this map are the regional system. And let's see if our microphone system works here. But the red lines are the regional system. They are 400 miles of pipe that goes all the way up into Genesee County, goes out to Ypsilanti, etc., and includes the red dots, the 5 filtration plants. The local system is the 3,400 miles of blue in the city of Detroit. And so this is a close-up of what Detroit looks like. The blue lines are the water mains running into everybody's neighborhood. The red lines in the filtration plants are carrying the water up to Royal Oak and East Point and the suburban areas. And so what we said is, Detroit needs to have full control of the 3,400 miles of water mains serving our neighborhoods, where all those water main breaks are existing. However, as far as I was concerned, the regional system is paid for by all 128 communities. I was okay with an agreement that gave the suburbs a shared voice in that part. The sewer system works virtually the same way. We have only 78 communities in our sewer system, a little bit smaller than the water system. The sewer system has 360 miles of regional sewer lines that all run down to the Jefferson wastewater treatment plant. Everybody in the 78 communities pays a piece of the regional system. Then we have the Detroit local system. 3,000 miles of sewers that run from everybody's house, taking the sewage from your home and the stormwater from your streets away. Only Detroiters are billed for the local system. And so it looks very much like what I showed you on the water system. You can see the red lines up in the outlying region. They're part of the regional system. They're what I'm proposing that we lease to the Great Lakes Water Authority. The blue lines are Detroit's local system. And they are the ones that I believe we need to keep 100% control of in the city of Detroit. And so, again, a blow-up of the Detroit sewer system. The red lines are the regional sewer pipes that are bringing sewage from all of the communities, the 78 communities. The blue lines are the Detroit local lines. And so, this is the agreement that we are proposing. With the Detroit local system, we keep 100% control. Then it go back to the Detroit Water Department. Then we go back to local control of the Detroit Water Department, where the mayor appoints the board members and the city council approves the contract. As you well know, the federal judge took that right away from the mayor and the city council some time ago. We intend to get that court ruling reversed as a part of this and get control of the local system back in the hands of City of Detroit's elected officials. On the other hand, the red lines, the regional lines, we're proposing that we rent to the new regional authority. And so, here's what it means to have full control of our local system permanently stay with us. We would, at the city level, keep and operate all 6,400 miles of our local water and sewer system, keep responsibility for maintaining all 27,000 of our fire hydrants, which we have not had a good job of seeing, and keep our local billing and collection system. All those things would stay with the city of Detroit. Today, as I understand it, City Council approves construction contracts over $5 million, professional services contracts over $2 million, otherwise City Council has very little to do with the operations of the Detroit Water and Sewer Department because of the federal court order. We're going to return this back to local control. The Great Lakes Water Authority would be the new regional authority. And so the city of Detroit will continue to own these assets. They're going to be ours, but we are going to rent them under this agreement. And so the Great Lakes Water Authority will rent these regional assets from us. 740 miles of those red lines I showed you, and the plans. For that, the whole region, Great Lakes Water Authority, with payments that are common to all, everybody in the region pays them, will pay $50 million a year for the next 40 years. On this condition, this is what Oakland and Macomb County insisted on. We have to use all $50 million in capital improvements to rebuild our pipes. The money can't go to the general fund, it can't go to creditors, it's going to fix the system so we deal with these water main. And, this is the next piece, the Great Lakes Water Authority is going to create a new water affordability fund at 0.5% of revenues. It will start the first year at $4.5 million. For the first time, we're going to have a permanent source of funds for those members of our community who truly can't afford their water bill. When we lease the regional assets, Detroit will keep a veto on the regional board. And so the regional board is going to be made up of 6 members, 2 selected by the mayor, 1 each by the Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County executives, 1 by the governor from the outlying areas. So we serve, for example, Ypsilanti, St. Clair, a number of areas outside Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb. The governor will pick a representative from those communities. Except for the major decisions, it's going to take 5 votes out of 6. Which means if there's any contracting out, if there's a selection of the executive director, if there's a setting of rates, Detroit will be able to veto it. On the other hand, Oakland and Macomb can get together and block. So we wanted a way that forced us to work together that protected the interests of the suburbs, but also protected the interests of the city. And it was this 5 out of 6 requirement that was really the centerpiece in getting this agreement finalized. We did this, in my mind, to avoid the emergency manager's plan to privatize the Detroit Water and Sewer Department. The council knows this. They were negotiating a memorandum of understanding for a 10 to 20-year contract for a company to come in and run the whole system. It wouldn't have mattered who appointed the board. At that point, we would have lost complete control. The private company would hire the employees. The private company would pay $26 million a year to the creditors. The company would do all the billing and collection. You can imagine if we had a private company doing the billing and collection and shutting off water in the city of Detroit. No allowance made for people with financial need, and no assurance on what would be done on the capital side. So what we are doing, if we can get this locked in, is we end the emergency manager's plan to privatize the department. When I talk to the average Detroiter, they've got three big issues with GLWA. The first is people who can't pay their bills. We got 100,000 households at or around the poverty level, and we have not made sufficient provision to help people who can't pay their bills. Second, the water main breaks and the sinkholes, and everybody in this town knows what that's like. It actually happens year-round. It's just much more noticeable in the winter. They happen more frequently, and of course the neighborhoods freeze. Third, and this is a more recent event, but the sewage backups in the basements. We had, a few weeks ago, what was declared to be a once-in-a-100-year storm, and the rainstorm overwhelmed the drainage system and backed the sewage up into people's basements. But if you've seen the rainstorms happen in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I'm not sure it's going to be 100 years before we see it again. We appear to be getting more and more rainstorms of epic proportions. And so that means we've got to find the capacity to handle the stormwater in order to prevent these basement backups. So how do we do it? On the affordability side, today the DWSD affordability program is funded by those members of our community who are charitable enough to donate 50 cents per month on their water bills. And in 2011, the generosity of the people of the city of Detroit provided $450,000 to help their neighbors. And then in 2012, that went down to $262,000. And then down to $212,000. And this year, even with all the publicity, it looks like we're going to be down to $185,000. This is not sufficient to help the people in this community. And I've gotten all kinds of petitions. The petitions are nice, but the petitions aren't coming with checks. I mean, we don't need petitions. What we need is money to help folks who are in need. And so this is the agreement we've negotiated. The Great Lakes Water Authority's affordability contribution, the first year will be $4.5 million, but it is going to grow with our revenue. And by the second year, we believe it's going to go up to 4.7. By the third year, it should be up to 4.9. It will continue to grow for the next 40 years. We are going to finally have a means of support. The trade-off of this is, however, this is going to go for needy people across the region. If somebody in Warren or somebody in Pontiac is below the poverty line and is in need, they get to access this too. And I think we ought to be concerned not just about residents of the city who are in need, but we are one region. And so we're going to have an affordability program that applies to this was the big issue. Where do you get at least $500 million to replace these complex lines? Here's what we ended up doing. The Great Lakes Water Authority is going to pay the DWSD $50 million a year for 40 years. That was a big start, but that wouldn't have been enough. They also will sell the bonds for us. And that's important because we can't afford to replace these pipes at $50 million a year. We need a $500 to $800 million reconstruction program over the next 4 or 5 years if we are going to dramatically impact these water main breakages. The Great Lakes Water Authority, because it covers the entire region, can borrow at a much lower rate and therefore get us a lot more money. And then the state agreed to do it through the Municipal Finance Authority, which means we add the state's credit. We believe we're going to be generating, we think, close to $800 million to rebuild the water and sewer system only spent in the city of Detroit. And we're going to put folks in this town to work because we're going to be letting the contracts locally at DWSD, and we are going to be able to give every legal preference allowable to Detroit-based and Detroit headquartered businesses and to hire Detroiters.